Good morning, Takeover community, sports card fans, anyone randomly coming across this video, although I'd be curious as to what got you here. Let's talk to the stack sellers on Twitter right now. But this is also of importance and good listen, I think, if you're a buyer of sports cards on platforms. I guess it doesn't just have to be Twitter. That's just my platform of choice. Let's say you're stack selling on Instagram, maybe Facebook, I don't know, other apps like Loop or whatnot, and Twitter. Let's just go through those. But I'm going to talk about Twitter specifically, excuse me, because that's what I know. So this one's important, I guess, not just for the sellers, although it mostly focuses on them, but the buyers. I want to see a little bit into our world, and I want to talk to the sellers today about the thing that all of us face, which is non-payment on stacks and what to do, and how to navigate feelings about that. Because I think, okay, so if you're, first of all, unfortunately it's going to happen. You're going to face getting ghosted on a stack that you've created for someone that they've claimed cards on in your sale. They might ghost you from the get-go. They might ghost you mid-messaging. They might straight up block you after you sent them the total. And it's always a weird vibe. It always feels weird or whatever, but it's not a reflection on your selling. Sometimes it plays in your favor. Sometimes someone backs out of a stack and you're able to sell those cards again later for a higher price because the player did something. But it can also go the other way. I've had a stack backed out on before that was hundreds of dollars, and by the end of it, it was in the middle of the crash of the plethora of like prison base and such that we had seen out there, and I guess in one sense, it's a bummer that I had that happen, but then also like glad that I didn't have someone like holding the bag unless I was their collection or whatever. But it sucks. It sucks when it happens anyways. And it's tough because so many of us, I think I can speak for us as sellers, we want to be friendly, kind people. We want to treat people right, do right by them. But we have to make money to keep going. We have to make money to even buy the cards to sell to people that they want. We have to, if you're a business like myself, and for me, this is my full-time job. It's how I provide for myself, for my family. And money gets injected back into the system of the company so that I can keep going and keep developing and unrolling things. I need that cash flow. Like, I can't function without it. If I don't get paid, there's no takeover, because I'd have to find something else to do. So anyways, let's get into it. What do we do about non-payers or people that ghost and things like that? I'm going to give you some ideas just based off of the way that I do it. I do not intend for it to be like, do it this way because this is what works, because something different is going to work for you. I just want to get you brainstorming. I also want to let you know that you're not alone when that happens, and maybe you can spin some ideas off of what I do, or maybe what I do is exactly what you need, or maybe you hate the way I do it and you do it totally different. That's fine too, but this just gets the conversation started. So as a stack seller, you never see it coming. Sometimes it can be a brand new buyer that ghosts on you, blocks you. Sometimes it can be someone just swinging in and grabbing a $5 card, but sometimes it could be a long-time buyer. It could be someone who's stacked with you for years, months, years before, and they've been good for it every time, but all of a sudden on this big stack, they've left you hanging. I think one of the first steps in deciding what to do is to assess how much you can be tied up, like cash flow wise. And that's going to help you, first of all, start pinpointing, how aggressive you want to be about the way in which you try to get these stacks paid off. Or if you have a little bit of breathing room, you can maybe be a little more relaxed. But you got to balance that not being walked on while also understanding that things happen. And sometimes someone comes across a huge hardship, a huge bill, a loss of a job, or things like that, and they need to back out. And I think it's important to assess the nuance of that and see if it's someone that you're willing to allow to purchase from you again in the future, or if it's someone that you just want to cut ties with and walk away from. And I'm a fan of not burning bridges. I'm a fan of keeping connections as much as we can outside of someone completely mistreating yourself or someone important to you or someone else in the community. Then I think it's important to maybe step away and cut ties. But, you know, it's not a one-off of someone being someone who backs out of a stack. Doesn't mean that there'll always be someone that backs out of a stack. But then at the same time, it makes you nervous to honor any of their claims just in case they'll do it again. But I have had people who I had an issue with the first time around who have been completely fine the rest of the way. So I think it's important to assess that. If you're someone that can't allow for like those moments of ghosting or losing out on a stack total or just delayed payment, then you need to think about ways in which you might want to be a little more aggressive on your follow through or getting paid than the way I go about it. I try to be relaxed a little bit. Sometimes I'll let people go past my 2-week rule, but I'll get into that in a little bit. This ties into what I was just saying, but balancing firmness with forgiveness. So yeah, consider giving someone a second chance. You know, if they do it twice in a row, then it's likely that it's not going to work in the future. And, you know, that's a bad move for them too, because there's a point at which they might run out of people that want to sell them cards. I mean, I don't think people realize that like stack sellers, box breakers, people of that sort communicate with each other in DMs. We let each other know, you know, like, we'll ask each other, like, is this person a good buyer? Do they follow through? Should I not sell to them? Should I not honor their claims? Like, we all have our own running lists of that. So it's important for those buyers to keep a good name and consistency if they do want to have people to sell to them. So my personal preference is the 3-strike rule. The first time it's kind of like, whatever. The second time, I mean, it's a bummer every time. But the second time, I'll let them know that a third time will result in me ignoring future claims. Because if that person has done that twice, like I said before, you know, the third time, it's going to be difficult for me to want to honor claims when I could let that card stay out there and someone else that's going to actually pay for it in a timely manner or pay for it at all could potentially claim it. So I kind of go by that 3-strike rule. Now, maybe it isn't that you're dealing with non-payers so much as slow payers. Because we're stack selling, it's actually mutually beneficial for us and the buyer to allow for an extended period of time to stack up and build a stack. But the way that I've evolved into managing that over time is to allow people to build stacks for up to 2 weeks. So that way, I know some people like collecting payments even sooner. I see people invoicing days after. I try to invoice days after, but sometimes there's so many things going on and the next sale's already here and at time. So that kind of extends it a little bit. But it is mutually beneficial for you to try to make a plan in which you can allow them to not have such sudden have to pay, ship out or whatever, because then that kind of steers them away from, you know, building a bulk stack with you that is actually financially beneficial to you and collection beneficial to them, or flip beneficial, whatever they're doing. So yeah, I roll with the 2-week rule. Sometimes I'm a little lax with that depending on my schedule, because I consider things like if I'm slow to invoicing the person, then that's not going to count towards the 2 weeks kind of thing. Or, you know, there's some people who have been buying with me for 6 years now on Twitter, and if they take a little bit longer, but they've always been a good payer, I'll be a little bit more relaxed. But I like allowing people to have that time to build a stack. But here's what I do. So to try not to have too much cash flow built up, because tied up, there are some people who, you know, I mean, there might be someone who just has a $5 stack. There might be someone who has a 20, a 50, but there's people who have stacks that are hundreds, even up to 1,000. And you can't operate and have that tied up, because the issue is it's not, you know, to that buyer, sometimes it's kind of like, oh, why are they so concerned over $5? But it's like, it's not your $5 stack that's the issue necessarily. It's the bigger picture of, like I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 16 like flat portions of a shelf to do that. Sometimes it can be around 300 active stacks. So if I even have 300 $5 stacks that aren't paid and they're late, like that turns into a bigger picture issue for me. So it's kind of like we gotta be empathetic with each other. Like you've got to understand the seller's need for that cash flow as a buyer, and as a seller, you've got to be sometimes a little bit empathetic to reasons why they might be slower. So, anyways, within that 2-week rule, what I'd often do is if I can at least receive payment for the cards within those 2 weeks, that buyer is allowed to keep stacking with me. I'll keep the stack here. We'll keep it under the flat rate shipping. The shipping won't go up even if they buy a crap ton more of cards and the shipment's heavier now. But that is mutually beneficial because I am then able to get my cash flow and the seller is able to still be running a bulk deal that's valuable to them where they can save money. Now, what if it runs longer than the 2 weeks? I'm speaking in my personal way of doing things. I've decided to post in my rules that if someone leaves me hanging past the 2 weeks without communication or without a genuine plan or attempt to pay down the bill, then I will add an additional late fee to the stack. Now I do $3. That's because I wanted it to be annoying enough while also not just being unreasonable. Then it kind of feels like like a late library fee, like an overdue book. It's kind of like, all right, let's get the ball rolling. Let's realize that this is going up because you've left me hanging and we're not communicating. But I'm also not trying to break the bank on someone. I'm just trying to speed up the process. And that feels minimal enough. It's kind of like, okay, then buy me a coffee, $3 more, kind of thing. Because you know what? I love coffee. Honestly, if you want to be a little bit late and buy me a latte, we can, that works for me, Most of the time I don't even have to do that though. That's the good part. I think that people are respectful, usually for the seller's time and what they're doing and whatnot. And people have come with genuine reasons why they can't pay right away. And we've worked it out or worked through it or made a payment plan, been like, hey, if you can send me, X amount of money weekly, we're good to go kind of deal. Yeah, so back to that, to just wrap up, back to the buyers. We don't want to be annoying as sellers. We don't want to hound you. We don't want to track you down. And we worry about that kind of stuff. That's the thing, because we want to treat you guys right. That's how I feel. I want the buyer to always have a good experience being in my community, purchasing from me, all those things. We want to give you the best deals. We want to ship fast. We want to bring great sales. We want to show up consistently. And that gets really hard sometimes. And our DMs fill up. We miss messages. We try our best. We want to do right by you ultimately. We never want to come off as the bad guy. And that's why honestly, sometimes it's actually hard for me to send out invoices. I'm growing in, yeah, I did this work. I deserve this money. I need to keep the business going. Sometimes personally, I'm yo, what if they're just Dan's being really annoying right now. Goodbye. That's a real feel. That's something for me to work on internally. But I bet you there's other sellers that you buy from that feel the same way. Because yeah, we don't want to annoy you. We just want to do right by you and have a good business, have a good stack sale, and be known well in the hobby and as genuine, loving, cool people. So that's the gist of it. I hope that there were some ideas in here that maybe you can take if you didn't have them, if you were wondering, but most of all to know that if you are struggling as a seller with non-payments or people ghosting or backing out or taking longer, that it happens to the best of us. And it's something we all deal with, and hopefully over time we can have less of it. But I hope that you walked away with some ideas of what to do, maybe ways to tweak your sales to get those payments, ways to go about it. If you have any personal ideas or opinions or thoughts on any of what I said or just the way you do things, please drop them in the comments. I would love to hear them. I'd love to hear about the ways that you guys do it if you are stack sellers and things like that. But I do want to just close again with something that I said multiple times already. I think ultimately we just all want this to be a mutually beneficial experience. We want buyers to feel good buying from us. We want to give them the best cards possible and just an all-around good time. Peace.